Joining me at the table at Tech Town is the Honorable Mary Sheffield, Detroit City Council President and candidate for mayor. Welcome to the show. First time.
Yes, it is. Excited to be here.
I'm so glad that you're joining us.
Thank you.
To talk about these issues that face the city. You are somebody who has a long history of public service, of being involved in the city. So what called you to public service?
You know, I like to believe that it is something that I literally was born into on both sides of my family, starting with my father and my grandfather, coming from over an 80-year legacy and lineage of civil rights and social justice, organizing and mobilizing at a young age. I was literally exposed to the fight for justice through organizing and mobilizing. And then on my mother's side of the family, come from nurses. All of them were nurses. My mother was a professor of nursing at Wayne County Community College District for 18 years. And they really taught me compassion and how to look after the least of thee and to care for people. And so having that blend of advocacy and fighting for justice, but also that compassion, I think naturally kind of led me to want to fight for the betterment of my city where I was born and raised.
Yeah. You've been a council member for a while. What are some of the things that you've learned doing that?
Well, I learned that it takes partnerships to get things done. I've learned that it's not always easy to stand for what's right, but it's okay to stand alone. And that sometimes challenging the status quo is not easy, but it will move the needle on a lot of issues. I remember a lot of times in Detroit when I first started being elected, and when I was 26 years old, my first term, I challenged a lot of things. A lot of people thought me and the mayor didn't get along because I would always push back on things and really raise my voice and advocate. And those times, while they may have been difficult, they were necessary. And I look at where we are today when it comes to water affordability, housing and home repair grants and foreclosure prevention. These are all things that I fought so hard for to lay the foundation to see the movement and the growth that we have today. So that taught me a lot about using your voice, even though it may be difficult. And I really understood and have learned how powerful local politics is over our day-to-day lives. We understand that national politics and the federal government plays a huge role, but all politics are local. And who we elect as mayor in our city council tremendously impacts our quality of life here in Detroit.
Well, that's something we talk about on Daily Detroit a lot, is that there's so much conversation around the presidency and the governor and things like that, but the stuff that impacts you day to day, whether it's dealing with parking or dealing with the lawn or dealing with your street getting fixed, that's not the president. That's exactly in your neighborhood. And by the way, you probably can run into them at the grocery store.
Yes, you can.
And tell them about it, right?
And we hear it all the time, no matter where I'm at. It's residents stop me and they either are letting me know how well things are going or complaints of things that are not happening well in Detroit. So yes, that's so true.
You were talking about sometimes standing alone, and it made me think of the importance of authenticity, because I am somebody who's been in Detroit a long time as an adult. I grew up, around Indian Village. If there's one thing that Detroiters respect, it's authenticity as to who you are, even if they don't agree with you or they're a little suspect at first. But Detroiters, we know if somebody's being that guy, right?
Yeah. That is so true. And I think, honestly, that is what has allowed me to serve for 12 long years in Detroit, is that authenticity. Always trying to be as honest as I can, as forthcoming as I can. I'm always honest with voters and residents. I may not know it all, but I will go do my research and find the answer. Or if I cannot solve the issue, I will make sure I get the appropriate people who can. And I think being authentic is something that I think sometimes is missing in politics. And I try to always stay true to myself and who I am and my values as well.
Well, I mean, even in the press, we know this difference between a statement that came out of somebody's mouth and then somebody wrote it.
Yeah.
Right? You know right away. And you all know it too, right? It's one of those things. So you're running for mayor. What do you think you can do as mayor that maybe you found you couldn't do as president of the city council? Because as president of the city council, there's a lot of things you can do. There's budget, there's things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's really going to be building upon a lot of the groundwork and the foundation that I've laid on the council around a myriad of issues, to be honest. But I think the mayor sets the tone. The mayor really sets the standard. The mayor has the authority when they're, negotiating development deals to say, hey, we want you to focus on our neighborhoods, and so there's a greater authority as a CEO in the visionary of Detroit to really set the standard of the direction of what way our city will go. And so I plan on leaving a huge mark in the area of housing, for example. I want to be able to be a leader in Detroit, getting back to a place of home ownership and really leading the country and the nation as a place to grow and start a business, to become a homeowner, to have the strongest middle class that we used to have and to be defined by in Detroit. And so I think you can lead the way in a lot of those issues. I also think that the mayor can be a lot more instrumental in education. I have so many ideas about how this next administration, which I'll be leading, can play a role in being a better partner, creating a task force to address literacy and youth after school programming and tutoring, and ensuring that we are providing more community hubs to address the social issues that our kids go through. So I think there is a myriad of issues. My vision and my focus always will be on safety, followed by not public housing, but investing in quality, safe, affordable housing, investment in our neighborhoods, ensuring that there's economic empowerment, that we're raising the wages of Detroiters, adequate investment in our public transportation system, and then lastly, again, of course, improving overall outcomes in the educational realm for our children.
There are a few different threads that I'm going to pull from that. Yeah. And the first one, I think, is, the median household income of Detroiters has been going up. It's still not, I think, personally where it needs to be. I would love to see the city at parity with the suburbs.
Yes.
Because I think there's a lot of problems in the city that would start to heal if the people had the money, right? The people need the money. How do you see a plan to get there, right? To make it so that, Detroit was home of the middle class, but to be home of the middle class again, aren't there going to have to be some things that adapt to 2025 instead of 1955?
Yeah, I do. I think we have to innovate ourselves. We have to continue to invest in people. I think that really is the key, that as programs come and as resources are created, that we're directing them to the investment in people, job training, skilled trades, ensuring that we are developing and cultivating the gifts of Detroiters, I think is important. And that we're also attracting high growth and high wage jobs and industries to Detroit. But oftentimes those industries may or may not come because of the many barriers that it takes to do business in Detroit. And because we also may not have the base or the talent base here in Detroit. And so we have to do both at the same time. We have to continue to invest in people, ensuring that we're creating programs like Earn to Learn, Skills for Life. These are programs that will train our Detroit residents as they go back and get certified and get the training that they need from an educational standpoint. And so I'm looking forward to implementing programs like that and being creative, like Universal Basic Income is a program that has been used in other cities around the country that will provide some of the lowest income residents a universal income for a certain amount of time to allow them to have upward economic mobility. So I think we have to be innovative in our approach to see what is working in other cities. But the main thing is not being unashamed, but being bold to invest directly in people.
One thing that I think some people may forget is that it's really expensive to be poor.
Yeah.
You end up paying more in the short term.
That's true.
For many things.
Yes.
And that's why concepts like UBI, Universal Basic Income, have a little bit of interest for me, because there are so many things on a day-to-day basis where it's like, I can only, if you're going to the dollar store and you can only buy X, but if you go somewhere else and get more of that for less, you can start to get yourself ahead. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And we learned this, I think, during the pandemic. Just a little bit can go a long way.
Yes.
And freeing people up.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, everything you said is so true. And I think also the cost of what we as a city have to invest in when people are struggling and possibly losing their home and going into homelessness. I mean, the economic return on that and the hit that we take as a city doesn't make feasibly sense. And so I think to be preventative and to address those things at the front end ultimately does all of us a way to address it.
So one thing that we have talked to a number of entrepreneurs on this show about has been that, honestly, sometimes it's a little difficult to work with the city. Let's be kind about it.
Yes,
sometimes it can be very frustrating, whether it's inspection delays or paperwork or even Byzantine rules that, to me, back to that, the city that maybe used to be, but maybe it doesn't fit for today, right? Maybe you want to put a bike rack somewhere.
Yep.
But, back then this was a super busy street, but now it's a lot quieter. Like, what would you do to try to like build on the progress that we've made over the last few years, where it becomes somewhere where it's like, hey, yeah, there may be costs to do things in Detroit, but it's more friendly to get things done, especially for small business owners. Because what I hear in the streets is that when you're talking about, say, minority developers and things like that who don't have the access to capital, the big guys, the billionaires, they have the lawyers, they have it, and so a system with lots of extra regulation ends up, in my opinion, and please feel free to push back, it ends up favoring those ultra rich because they have the lawyers, they have the time, they have the resources. Whereas you've got somebody trying to do a 4-unit or an 8-unit, say out on the west side, they don't have time for those games.
Yeah. No, I mean, you raised a great point. Our administration is going to focus on making Detroit the best city in the country to start and grow a business. We're actually doing the work now. I'm going to be sponsoring an ordinance while I'm on the city council that's going to really streamline some of our zoning and permitting so that it would reduce almost 6 to 9 months for a business to start up. And so we're working on some of those changes now proactively. I would like to launch an Office of Small Business Affairs that will give that ecosystem to support smaller developers and entrepreneurs who are trying to navigate departments, zoning, what type of tax abatements are available, all of those things that typical entrepreneurs go through but do not know how to navigate the bureaucracy like typical larger developers do through the DEGC. They have that support, but our smaller entrepreneurs do not have that assistance. And so I would like to set up a Office of Small Business Affairs that would assist with that navigation and that ecosystem of support. We're also going to be looking to create a business development fund, partnering with our philanthropic and private sector to create a fund to further explore ways to create access to capital for our businesses. We know that that's one of the number one issues is how we get access to capital. And so we'd love to figure out how to expand that, as well as the various programs that we currently have through the DEGC, Motor City Match, the Detroit Legacy business that I just created that's giving grants to businesses to grow and to expand. We have to continue to explore ways to grow those programs to ensure that people do have access, our residents in our business have access to capital.
Well, the issues in Detroit are multi-layered, right?
Yes.
Because not only do you have poverty, not only do you have some issues with access to capital,
yes,
but because you have that poverty, you don't have the generational wealth. There's a big gap for a lot of people where they don't have that uncle. They don't have that granddad. They don't have that whatever for that $5,000, $7,000, those little things. It's like, oh, let's try this thing and it's not going to hurt that. You know what I mean? That is an issue that is, I think I've noticed different between Detroit and the suburbs.
Yeah, the ability to pass on the generational wealth.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a real thing. And I think it starts with us investing in people and ensuring that it's really a culture thing. We have to teach people not to just be consumers, but to be owners, that entrepreneurship is a route. And you start that at a young age in high school, showing young people how to start a business. What's the importance of keeping your home and your family to pass on that generational wealth through home ownership. And so I think some of it is educational, but also the city investing in young people at an early age to start opening up their mind to think more of entrepreneurship as a route to generational wealth as well.
Now, some people might not know this, but the city of Detroit has among the highest percentage of carless and low car access homes in the country. I think we're in the top 10. Don't quote me off the top, but you wouldn't think it. We're the Motor City, right? So that brings up two things. I think number one, transit, and number two, for the people who are going to drive, things like car insurance. Those are two key issues. Getting to those jobs is so important because people can get locked in geographic poverty. Right. So why don't we kind of look at the transit side? What is your vision for that? Because look, I took the Woodward today. I had a ghost bus. Right.
Wow.
Right. Like it's a thing that we need to improve that reliability. And if you think about where the cities, in my opinion, that are attracting top talent, they're investing in these
transit.
things.
Yeah, they have great transit. Well, I'm first proud to say that in this last budget, we allocated roughly $20 million into DDOT, which was the first we've done in over 12 years that I've ever seen that amount going directly into our public transit system. So I think that sends a huge signal that we are looking at transportation and taking it serious. And so my vision is that we create more accessible, frequent, and reliable routes through DDOT, that we have more bus rapid transit, that we are connecting up and down our commercial corridors, and that we have more availability to have our route stops be hopefully 7 to 10 minutes max waiting time, right? And so that's important to me. I think also from a regional standpoint, we have to be able to connect regionally. And I'm excited to see that there was a bill passed in Lansing that now allows or does not allow for counties to opt out of the SMART system. Because at one point in time, out of the 43 counties in Wayne County, roughly, 17 opted out. And so you have the ability where Detroiters couldn't really fully get around
Yeah,
because
those
you had
cities. Yeah, those
those
cities. Like
cities. Yeah,
Livonia was one of them.
exactly.
Yeah.
And Detroit was one as well. We did not choose to opt in. And so we did not have the regional aspect of transportation. So for me, I would like to see a more regional approach. And I am excited to see the ability now for us to connect regionally with SMART to improve transit up and down our corridors. I had a meeting actually not too long ago with Roger Penske talking about, is there a possibility to expand the Q line possibly to 8 Mile? There is some possible funding that may be forthcoming to do that. So looking at that as an alternative. And then also there's a study being conducted right now to re-examine the people mover. That study will be done next year. That will do an overall analysis to see if it's feasible and how much it will cost to expand the people mover. But again, I think exploring all mobility options, but the primary one is that we have to invest in our own public transit and make sure that there's regional connections.
When you think about, say, like a people mover expansion or bus rapid transit, all that would have to tie, I think, to various hubs in the neighborhoods,
For
right? Because
sure.
I think one thing that, at least for me, and we can obviously push back on me on this, but like there's downtown and then there's the neighborhoods, but I also think that the neighborhoods deserve their own downtowns, right? They need to have their own places that they too, like I don't like, I live in the North End, right? If I want coffee, I don't go to downtown Detroit. I go to Cafe Noir, right? But because there's that little strip right there on John R. and it's really cool, right? So I feel like that's part of more of like a complete city where, yes, there is downtown, but also neighborhoods have services right near them. Where they
For
don't
sure.
Because it can be a minute. Like the ride from Grandmont Rosedale to downtown is a minute.
It is. I just drove that today, literally. I was over on Grand River in Council President Pro Tem Tate's district. But no, I agree. I think we have to revitalize our communities, create amenities right within our neighborhoods that are walkable and vibrant. Almost a 10-minute, I think it was a 5-minute, 10-minute communities where you can, within 10 minutes, get to a school, to a church, to a grocery store, to any amenities, a coffee shop, right within a 10-minute walk of your home. And so I think that is a part also of changing the culture of how business is done in Detroit, because right now it's extremely hard to open up a restaurant or a coffee shop. So oftentimes business owners go to the suburbs to do it because it's easier. The cost of entry is cheaper. And so as we talk about revitalizing and creating these downtown neighborhoods, we have to also change the culture and create a more business-friendly environment for those businesses to open up shop.
My next question ties into the transportation piece, but also dealing with Lansing and dealing with Washington, right? As a mayor of Detroit, it's a very important position. I think it's important nationally. Detroit is important. And also key to that is going to be dealing with those other office holders. We talk about, I mentioned car insurance. That's something that's a lot of stuff's going to have to happen in Lansing, right? To make some of those changes. How are you going to advocate for things like that, or dealing with an administration that doesn't, has said some things about the city before?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm sorry, but I don't mean to pick sides, but I take that as a sign.
Yeah.
Right? When someone says that about my town.
For sure. And by the way, I did respond when he made that comment back then. But
I think it's only fair.
Yeah, it's only fair. I have to stand up for Detroit. But no, in all seriousness, I'm going to have to work with whomever's in office, red or blue, green or white, no matter your background, your race, your color, your beliefs. I come from a legacy of people who've already done that. And I have already established a lot of relationships in Lansing, in the federal level as well, too, and will continue to build those relationships to get things done. To me, it always is about finding common ground, how we can maybe disagree to agree. There has to be a common thread or a common theme or something that we can unite on to benefit the residents in Detroit. So it may not be easy, but it's doable. And I've served under a former Trump administration in the past. I know this is a different one, but I know that it can be done. And I will always stand bold and will always speak up for anything that is detrimental to the residents of this city, but also understanding that when I need to go speak and advocate, I will have to do that because that is who is serving in our government at this time.
I want to end on vision because the city has a very important opportunity right now to set a future course. And whoever's selected for office, and I love the confidence, by the way. What is your vision? What do you want to see in 4 years? We come back to this table. You're running again, right? Let's visualize
I'm
here.
closing my eyes.
Right. But what do you want to see as wins? This that you're going to talk about where you want to take this city in the, like, where are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, my vision would be creating a destination of opportunity, one in which our families, our youth, number one, stay in our city, but also we're attracting people to come to our city because of the amazing home ownership opportunities, the walkability, the vibrancy of our neighborhoods. And our commercial corridors are vibrant as well. Our educational system has improved and people feel comfortable moving their families and their children into our communities and our neighborhoods. And then our middle class is strong and we're building that as well too. And so that is my vision, is that we're really creating a world-class city that I know that Detroit deserves. I would love to also see within the next 5 to 10 years the wages of Detroiters increase and that people are moving upward economically, and creating that generational wealth that we talked about. And so I would love to see population increased, more people becoming homeowners in our city, the creation of more infill housing being developed within our communities and our neighborhoods, and the activation of several other commercial corridors and neighborhoods that have new restaurants, new businesses, flourishing and thriving in our communities, and everyone's quality of life is improved. I think the perception in the culture of Detroit not being the place to be. I mean, I think Detroit is just as good or better than DC, LA, New York, Miami. And so my goal also would be to really change the perception of Detroit on a national level, that Detroit is a place to be. It is a cool place to be. It is a place to grow, to live, and to develop. And so a part of that goal and that vision is to also change our perception nationally so that people actually feel that this is a place to go and to be. And oftentimes when young people graduated, they get their education, they leave because that's traditionally what we've been taught to do. We go to these cool cities, but we're going to change that culture and that perception. You graduate, you get educated, we're staying in Detroit because Detroit is the next in the Miami, right? The Chicago, the New York. And so a part of this growth also is really changing the perception that Detroit is just as good, I should say, or better than these other major cities.
Well, there's a reason why at times it's been called the Paris of the Midwest.
Yes.
Paris is a pretty good comparison.
That's a great one.
Well, Honorable Mary Sheffield, Detroit City Council President and candidate for mayor, thank you for your time on Daily Detroit. Doors always welcome.
Thank you so much.